the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Robert Dew.
Present.
Kevin Fuller is absent. Don Jensen.
Here.
Tom Shifsky is absent. Archie Vickerman.
Here.
Tim Cole, absent. Terry Furlong. Brian Frandl.
Here.
And Brett Gary is absent.
Do we have any attendees via Zoom?
I was not linked in to that.
If you could be more mayor-like, that would be great. If you could be more mayor-like, that would be great.
Yo.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
You have nothing else going on, do you?
Recording in progress.
Alright, so we do not have any other attendees.
Okay. We have the agenda in front of you. I do have one proposed addition under item 6. I'd like to add item D, which is the Lilly Building abatement. That's hazardous material abatement, not tax abatement or anything along that lines, just to be clear. Any other proposed changes to the agenda? If not, motion to adopt the agenda.
So made. Second.
What's up?
We'll give it to Don.
We'll get it done. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we've adopted the agenda. Meeting minutes are attached from the August 17th meeting, excuse me. I reviewed them. I have nothing to discuss. Does any members have anything to discuss on the minutes from the prior meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimously approved. Next item. Meeting to the public. No one present, no one on Zoom. So we will move to item 6, authority business and action items. First item is the new subsidy policy. This, I believe, is attached in the packet or not?
No, I didn't have
It's
a copy of that.
Okay, are you, so we discussed at our, I think our last meeting, it was really surrounding the, loan that we intended to make to NSP Hospitality. As part of that process and talking with outside counsel, it was acknowledged or recognized that we are required as a city to have a public subsidy policy for making loans and or grants to private parties. Although the loan that we intended to make would not be subject to this policy by statute because it was below the $150,000 threshold, everyone thought it would be a good idea to use that opportunity to freshen up and create a, what are we calling it again?
Business subsidy.
Business subsidy policy that is essentially that as the EDA we have bought into and are subject to, as is the city council. It did go in front of the council at the September 7th meeting and did pass by unanimous vote. And we'll, maybe we can ask staff to make sure that everyone on the EDA gets a copy of that. I will say that I did have opportunity to review it in advance. Pretty innocuous, aligns with the statute. Long and short of it is any subsidy that is made that's over $150,000 requires a public hearing. And that's per statute, not per North St. Paul desire or anything. And beyond that, most of it is just kind of follows statute requirements on how to document and lays out kind of a criteria for making this decision on whether to grant the subsidy, things that you can get in exchange for, whether it's jobs or, jobs at a certain wage rate or, whatever, lays out opportunities for exchange. Most of them are not mandatory. It's just, how one might go about it. So, which I think will be helpful to us in the future if we consider subsidies, what do we look at? What should we be considering so we're not starting from scratch? So, I mean, that was really.
It ties in with the TIF too, all those TIF districts and all that, so.
Yeah, it's, really any subsidy.
Right.
Right, it's over the $150,000 threshold, so. It is, I think the EDA is named on that policy, I think it's EDA and the council or something. So we'll get that circulated for everybody to review, but know that it did pass. And it does have flexibility up and to the point where essentially it can be adjusted at any time, and it's not overly restricted in terms of, you must do this or that in terms of what the exchange is. It just offers a path, suggested path, essentially. I mean, these are my words, not the exact words out of the policy, but it can be more restrictive as well if we choose it to be. So that's about it on that. I don't think we need to necessarily pull it up and run through it.
No, I think that we can review it, and if there's questions, we'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Sure.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, it'd be good for everybody to have in their arsenal.
Yep.
Yep.
It's pretty cookie cutter. I mean, it's, other cities use the same type of policy that was adopted. So there's nothing unique, no, with the criteria of that. I don't think so. I don't think.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, quite frankly, I think that was just kind of an administrative cleanup that nobody could find the old one, and even if we did, it was likely dated anyways because of some new statutes that had come into play, so it was time to update it. And we just decided to do it parallel with this proposed loan to NSP Hospitality in the event that somebody suggested we can't do it without having that policy in place. So pushed outside council and got them both done at the same time. So next item, I'm going to actually, if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to do item C before we do item B, which is the loan agreement with NSP Hospitality. So NSP Hospitality is the owner of B52, who's going to put the restaurant facility in there, and as you know, we prior voted as a group to authorize $125,000 forgivable loan to them, taking equipment and other things as collateral as part of the loan. So those loan documents were completed. There are, and that also went in front of the council for approval. That passed by a majority, 3-2 vote. Council member Thorson and council member Peterson voted no. Can't really speak to their logic as to why they voted no. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but long story short, it passed. So the nuts and bolts of that loan agreement basically provide once they have that equipment acquired and paid for, we reimburse them. they'll provide that. That subset of equipment becomes part of a collateral document or security document to the loan, and it essentially requires that they continue to operate that business for a period of 5 years and have 1/5 of the loan forgiven each year, provided that they have a requirement to do some annual reporting, in terms of, kind of what their business is doing, not necessarily a deep dive on the numbers, but kind of what their business is doing, that they're fully compliant with all city codes and regulations, all their taxes are paid, et cetera, so.
We're taking the whole equipment package as collateral?
That is the intent, yeah.
Pardon?
That is the intent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Who performs that audit and cracking of the situation?
So, since it is with the EDA, we do have the responsibility, I believe, to, the onus is on the borrower, in this case, and the hospitality, to prepare and submit that reporting each year. I suspect, like with most things, they might need to be prodded or reminded of that requirement. In terms of reviewing, since it is with the EDA, it's incumbent upon us to, certify their compliance annually. We do have right to inspection and some other things as part of the loan document, so if we wanted to go in and just take a peek and make sure that the equipment's still there and in good order or whatever, we certainly can do that, so.
Does their reporting periods follow our July 1 to July 30th?
Oh, the fiscal year.
Or do they go December, or January through December?
I'd have to pull it up I don't know that,
It's not the
answer to that, Archer.
I'm just wondering.
Lisa, can we ask that loan agreement be circulated to
Sure.
the finalized loan agreement be
Yep.
circulated to the EDA as well?
Did he have to submit financial information as far as to get approval for the?
Not to us.
Oh.
We didn't, that's not something we asked for. I think we may have even discussed it at one point on the continuum, but again, the exchange, I think you in particular, knowing that, 125 is only a tenth in what he's putting into the place.
Yeah.
And so, if he's putting the rest of it into the facility, and the fact that he has to produce that equipment that's gonna be collateralized.
Yeah.
And show that it's paid for before we pay him as part of the loan docs, we felt that's sufficient, so.
Okay. I'd like to, when and if he provides us the compliance information, I'd like to take a look at that.
Yep.
I'm pretty used to looking at restaurant financials, so.
Yeah, and again, I don't recall whether, he's required to submit a financial statement. He does have requirements to submit a number of things associated and directly tied to the loan amount and the collateral, but not necessarily. I don't know, they may be in there, but I'm not sure that it's part of the package that it's required, so.
Well, typically compliance would have like a function of EBITDA, a couple other cash flow versus, or net cash flow, those types of
Financial
things.
statements.
Yeah, agreed, agreed, on an ongoing credit facility, I would certainly agree with that. I mean, again, this is you almost view it, even though it's called a loan and it's captioned as a loan, it's forgivable and it's fully collateralized in theory, so.
Yeah.
Maybe a little different.
Well, the only bad thing about that, and I completely agree with you, and I think this was a really good idea, but once he puts the equipment in, it's only worth 25 cents on the dollar.
Right.
You know.
And I think we were aware of that, but
Yeah.
I do, in fairness, I think that the loan documents not only collateralize specifically the kitchen equipment, it's kind of it's like tables and chairs.
All inclusive?
Yeah, so.
Okay.
There's a little bit more than just.
Yep.
So.
All right.
Yeah, and there was a fair amount of, I guess, not to, and I'm gonna have to paraphrase a little bit, but a fair amount of discussion at the workshop about this, and there was some pushback, particularly from Councilmember Thorson, regarding just the concept of subsidizing, any private business, kind of let more under the theory of let the market make it happen type of thing.
My only issue with his thought process on that is the fact that if we don't have a successful restaurant in town, we'll never get one.
Right, and
That's at some point, it's the chicken and the egg.
right, and that is essentially the discussion that occurred. It was, the argument that I tried to pose anyways was, this is just another piece to the puzzle. We're bringing on, we're gonna have, over the period of 24 months, 400 to 600 additional residents in the downtown area between the old Anchor block, facility.
Yep.
What do we call that, Northbrook? We know what it is.
Yeah.
And in the downtown building here, and this is what we are charged with in the EDA. We're charged to, business retention and attraction, and this is just part of the puzzle. And, ideally, we get ourselves to a point where we don't have to do this because we create the environment where people will pay the full freight just to get in here. But when you start, these are the types of things you need to do to stimulate that activity, so.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly.
Right, and, again, at the end of the day, it did pass on a 3-2 vote. We didn't have to get to the point, I personally didn't believe that we required council approval for this, because then there was a question about whether we had the funds, and I think that was one of the issues was, okay, we're gonna go borrow from the electric fund and they'll never get paid back or something like that, but, I contended that we had the funds in the EDA account to do this, more than sufficient funds to do this, and, which was verified by the finance person that was at the meeting as well. So,
Was this more precedent setting versus following a previous model of this type of assistance?
I don't know, I wouldn't call it precedent setting, it's certainly not in the broader community. Cities, communities do this all the time.
Yes, exactly.
In North St. Paul, I would say, it's, beyond the TIF agreements that we've come to on numerous, the numerous TIF, zones that we've set up. I don't think zone is the right term, what do we call it? TIF districts that we've set up. I would say that, this is probably the first time that we've done a subsidy of this sort, at least in the last 10 years that I'm aware of. Beyond, some smaller business loans that we facilitated through, MCCP or whatever.
I'm just asking because I agree wholeheartedly with Don. I think this type of business had to happen in this community in the time it is now. And you get this opportunity to bring a restaurant in, you just can't say, well, I'm sorry, but we have our criteria and we're not budging. I like to see the flexibility and creativity to do something like this, to initiate a need and be able to accommodate that interest and turn it into success.
Right.
I don't think there was gonna be a restaurant to come in without some sort of
I would agree.
incentive.
Right.
And like you mentioned, other communities have been
I
doing
agree.
the same thing. I agree 100% with that.
When St. Louis Park started, Excelsior and Grand down there, that's what they did. And then, in fairly short order, it was, maybe we'll let you in and maybe we won't, and we're not giving you anything. But everybody beat down the door to get in anyways, because they wanted to be there. Because there was hundreds of residents that were gonna, patronize these places, so. Yeah, to me, on a way smaller scale, it's no different than, Amazon's gonna build new headquarters, what do? They send out papers all over the country and say, who's giving me the best deal?
Exactly.
This, I think it aligned well. It's somebody that's got some North St. Paul roots, has a successful, couple successful restaurants already, and so I think it'll work out good. The other thing I would say in hindsight, I do think that we, to your point, maybe on kind of the due diligence, did we look at financials, did we do some of these other things? I do think we probably could have gone a little deeper as an EDA in that regard, than we did, but, you know, I guess I don't want to call it lesson learned, because hopefully it'll, you know, I think it'll work out, but, that is something that we probably could have been a little bit, armed a little bit better, to have that discussion with council when we went to vote.
Well, if we want a restaurant, we probably have to go a little on faith too.
We got one coming, so.
Yeah, exactly.
I got one coming, so.
And a little bit about, we met with Gary Mulcahy yesterday, and Gary's got the old Max Diner sign, the outside, the neon, the big.
Oh, really? The one that was on top?
The one that was on top, and as of yesterday, he was willing to allow it to go inside the new building. Inside
Oh,
the new-
cool.
Yeah. But you still gotta think about it. Gary's one of those guys, you gotta think about it, but Brandon was really excited. He thought, oh my God, it'd be a huge, you know, you walk in the door and you see the old Mac sign, it's all the old neon and stuff.
Mhm.
Is he gonna call it Max?
Mhm.
That's what I thought.
I don't know if he's gonna call it Max Diner, though, because Diner kind of insinuates, you know, kind of a different type of menu or whatever.
It's called Max.
Max.
So, the two follow-ups on that, one is to circulate that loan document to the EDA members, and then, the second item is, I don't believe those documents have been executed yet.
They have not, so we need to really, who's got those documents? And I think they need a little bit more information on those documents, that need to come from the landowner. We'll need to add that. I did reach out to Gary Mulcahy, or Gene Burwald, and they're gonna send me that information. And as of today, I have yet to receive it. And they know that we're waiting for that.
And then once
And
they.
then Brandon will sign it.
Right, and once the borrower's executed, and then, myself and Brian will execute it on behalf of the EDA.
Sure.
Okay, anything else on that item?
We just need to make sure that we get that information from Burwald's and get that on the document and get Brandon to sign that ASAP.
Okay, we'll move to item B now, which is the parking lot improvement plan. As a precursor to that, can we pull up those overheads? And then, as a precursor to that, if you are not aware, the knick-knack shop that we purchased out of foreclosure was not redeemed by the mortgager, but it was redeemed by somebody that had a subordinate debt on it. So that-
What?
Yep. So, the way the statute works is that, after the 6-month period, there is a 7-day period for any junior creditors to redeem, which 99 times out of 100 doesn't happen, because the junior creditor usually doesn't have enough skin in the game to make it worthwhile.
Yep.
But a junior creditor did redeem it, and I don't know who they are, but I've seen people pecking around over there, so we are getting our dollars back. I don't know if we've got them yet from the sheriff's civil unit, but.
We got $6,000 in the top.
Yep, so about $6,000 on that plus interest, so,
Mhm.
you know, the 118 or whatever we paid for it plus $6,000, back in the kitty. So, which is relevant to one of the items that I had to do, which was to coordinate with WSB and get proposals to do a study on what are we gonna do with that building, and what does that pass-through look like, et cetera, in conjunction with the parking lot. So all of that unfolded since our last meeting, and so we paused any effort in that regard. And,
But we don't know who that subordinate is either, do we?
we don't, and
And we don't know the intentions of that person, if he, like you say, it was just somebody who thinks that it's more valuable, maybe it's $5,000 more, $10,000 more, I don't know, we don't know what that.
Yeah, it could have been anything, right? It could be, in talking with it's the sheriff's, Ramsey County Sheriff's Civil Process Unit that handles this, and I asked him, he said, I can't tell you. You can continue me to ask questions, and when you ask one that I can answer, I will, but I can't answer that. Never got to the end on what that was, but he said, I can tell it, because I asked him, I said, was this a secondary mortgage of some sort? And he said, no, it was not, so he was able to answer that. So I don't know what it was. It could have been a lien for snow plowing, a lawyer's more than likely, it could have been any number of things, but, likely a scenario where somebody was owed, I have no idea what the number was either. I never did find out. We just kind of Brian and I kind of ran out of time on the deal. If we had pulled a UCC on it to see what liens were against the property at the time, we could probably have narrowed it down. But, if somebody was owed $40,000 or something, I'm just making up numbers here, but, if they were owed $40,000, they said, okay, well, I can go in and, pay another $80,000 and have an asset that's potentially worth $200,000. I mean, that's the only kind of math equation that probably worked, and somebody probably did that math and figured it out. Or it was the original owner's brother-in-law and had some sham lien filed, I don't know. Who knows? I'm not saying that happened, but anyway, we don't have the property, so. So when we get into the parking lot options, WSB had already been engaged by the city, to do some preliminary study on this back parking lot. And I think this one kind of shows utilities. Maybe we can click to the next, one of the next one. Then they came up with a few different options on layout and, certain ones where you can get more spaces. I'm going to stand up here real quick and just point if I can. So, there's a number of different layouts with diagonal and straight and what have you. But so originally we were looking at these two buildings here, I believe, which we were talking about creating that pass through there. So one of the things I still don't think it's a bad idea to try to find a way to create a positive connection, pedestrian connection between the parking lot and 7th.
Yep.
And so I talked to WSB about this. There's a possibility here. Now, we don't own these properties. We haven't, they're all privately owned.
Yep.
But there are opportunities that if we can work with these landowners and figure something out, to help make that part of the plan, because I think that providing good access and safe and well-lit pedestrian pathways from this parking lot to 7th, we're going to get it out of this end just with what's going on, over by KJ's and the new restaurant. But to get them into kind of the main part of the street here, we've got this down at the one end, maybe we look at that. We've got this spot here, which I believe this is Sandy's Sewing Den. I think this is, I don't know if this is Luther, but there's a pass-through right here.
Yep, right next to Shangri-La.
Right next to Shangri-La, yeah.
Right, so there's this I call it, I'll just say it's a undeveloped 25-foot wide chunk that I would suggest we probably do some work to figure out, can we work out something, with that landowner to create a passageway. It's going to get used anyways.
Yes.
How much
Right.
of that property is owned by the Shangri-La all the way back to
This,
the parking lot?
yeah, from
That
here
whole
back,
strip?
here back to here, and then this parcel is owned, I think this is Luther, I think he owns all of this. I think it's all Tracy Luther's, because this PID and this one are the same owner. I looked it up on the Ramsey County property records. But I think there's a great opportunity there, and it's kind of centered in the parking lot. You know, I think it would be worthwhile having a discussion about what might be done there. You know, for, again, pedestrian access to the,
Well, maybe if they're not planning on using it and they just want that access, you know, we could maybe improve it for pedestrians. I know there's people that park in there.
right, but,
Yeah.
Oh, in that Shangri-La?
Just behind Shangri-La.
right, but if they have a well-lit and improved parking lot behind there,
Yep.
we're talking about, could you park your 2 cars back there instead of
Up
here?
front, yeah.
And let us create a, you know,
A throughway.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not gonna be free, but, that was the concept I had, and I talked to WSB about, and, so I don't know what the group thinks about that, but I wanted to throw that on the table.
I think it's worth pursuing, and we should determine if there's some interest in furthering a conversation and negotiation to see what their plans are, what their feelings are, and at least we get an idea where we're at.
Right, and you know, even if it's a long-term land lease or something,
Sure.
right? You know, to do an improvement there that allows, I mean, and I would think, I'm not gonna speak for Tracy, obviously, but I mean, if I'm Tracy, I say, well, that might be a good thing for my auction house too, to allow people to not all have to come through that back door, they can, you know, traffic themselves safely from the parking lot to the front of the building, whatever, so.
It's always shocking when I drive down 7th on Monday nights and go, oh, what the heck is going on? Oh, that's right, it's his auction.
It's auction night, yeah.
I still think, you know, that being just newly repurchased, per se, that potentially still could be a potential spot. Once he gets in there and decides what he wants to do, if he's gonna try to get $5,000 out of it or what, we don't know what that number is. Find out who that owner is, the new owner is gonna be for that knick-knack shop. So I get this feeling that that building is in pretty disarray. I mean, it needs a lot of work.
Right.
And for that person to come in and buy it and then put that much money into it, I don't know if that's gonna happen.
I'd almost be more inclined to think, you know, kind of out loud, that once they get their money back out of it, if they're gonna turn it and step away from it versus dive in and put a lot more money into something, you know, they probably know that building is
No,
in default, if you will, if not, they're.
right. And we should know that answer pretty soon, I would think.
Yeah, or we could be more affirmative about it and try to engage with it.
Well, maybe there's a chance to retain it or just buy it back.
Go knock on the door.
Can't hurt, all they can do is say no.
Right.
Yeah, we don't know if it's related to the previous owner or not.
Ask the question. I mean, at some point, they're gonna have to show.
Because I'm sure there's code violations there that, you know, that needs to be cleaned up. I think the front, you know, front facade needs to be something done with it. We don't have to come looking like crap either.
There's probably a lot of code issues electrically and so on and so forth within that whole structure, so who knows?
Is that, I mean, if we had a, you know, full-time EDA person, I would suggest that would be the right person to go knock on the door, but since we don't,
Right.
what's the suggested path to engage with?
Maybe, figure it out.
It'd be good, I mean, yeah, I mean, if we can, you know, figure out whose name is on that thing and try to, A, see if anybody knows them for starters, and B, if we don't, if we can get some contact information, short of that, just go over and knock on the door.
Right.
You know, I like that path initially before we use shuttle code enforcement out there. You know, that would be step 2.
Try the carrot first.
Right.
Exactly.
We'll send Carrie over there.
There you go. Should be going for it.
So I think, mean, what I'm kind of hearing or we're talking about is a potential of two engagements. One, confirmation of the owner of that thoroughfare that's kind of midstream, which I think is Tracy Luther. And then also an engagement with whoever did redeem the knick-knack shop. Yeah, because there's always a possibility too that maybe they're gonna razz it and do something different with it, but maybe we can get, maybe we can leave some room to, make a positive connection, to the street as well. So, how do you wanna leave that?
Let's try to figure out who that owner is and.
I like to direct staff to do things, but I don't wanna cause headaches to staff. I'm happy to make a call too. I mean, if, I think you guys have a little better access to
Yep.
who owns what.
I'm assuming there's gotta be new electric gonna go in, so we gotta have a.
Yeah, I'll find out if you.
Yeah, somebody's gotta update the utility
Right.
situation and.
Yep.
Yep.
We can find out. I'll get that info.
Right, and then because I do think it would be important that we look at that as part of the parking lot.
Yeah, no, I agree, I like that. The other thing is, coming out of it, on Margaret,
Yep.
It's natural that people are gonna be walking and wanna just cross right there to get to the new restaurant, rather than walk all the way down
To the corner.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean,
Sweet.
I don't know about you, but if I park here, I'm not gonna go like this.
Right,
I'm gonna go.
right.
Mhm.
And they do it right
Might
now
as well
at the car
put-
show.
Yeah.
The car show, they just cross.
We might as well put a crosswalk there because otherwise you're gonna stick a police officer there and go jaywalking, jaywalking, jaywalking.
Okay, we hand out a lot of jaywalking tickets and.
Well, especially when the police force over your shirt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's see what options we have there.
Yeah, I don't know, I know that, it's city street, but in dealing with most municipalities or counties, when they're pretty hesitant to do something that close to an intersection. They just say, no, you gotta go to the intersection, but, obviously there's,
Make it friendly, to walk across, even if they come back a little bit, so it's not so close to the intersection or whatever, I don't know.
I think we can talk to, maybe we'll just talk to Morgan, talk to WSB as part of their plan, right? So if they're not, to me, if they're not, I know that there's some planters and things that weren't done as part of this reconstruction. I don't know if any were scheduled from here, but to me, if we didn't have the ability to say, okay, you can come out of here and cross safely, whatever that is, crosswalk, warning lights, whatever, however you do that, then I would suggest that we try to build in, some physical barriers that push people down to the corner, whether that's a planter. I think a planter would look nicer than a yellow guardrail, but, something to move people down to,
Yep.
get them to cross where we want them to.
Yeah,
Most people won't jump the planter.
I think even the people living in the apartment potentially could be parking in that big parking lot.
I think they will be.
Yeah.
So, yes, because they only get one slot per apartment.
Correct. So I think it's important that we look at the safety issue there with WSB.
Right, so, and I think it's important we kind of pass this along here, because I don't know who Morgan's talking to on this stuff outside of the discussions I've had with him, but he's clearly talking to somebody, within the city. I don't know if that's you, or, I think this originated under Dudek, but.
Be under, we'll do Dick, and then Ron as well, the Public Works Director, for those type of things, depending on what the topic is, maybe me or Ron.
Okay, so, yeah, maybe we can, if we can, just maybe spread the word that, A, we're trying to find a connection, B, we have some concern about pedestrian traffic coming out of the west side of that parking lot and how that's gonna be handled. Maybe something would work a little further back from the intersection, or, again, something that, attempts to
Yeah.
direct.
Put it on the south side of the intersection, maybe.
What's that?
Just that just gives you that much more space, like crosswalk on the south side of the intersection instead of the north side.
What are you saying?
Down, yeah, right there.
Oh,
And then
down here.
cross, yeah.
Yeah, it gives you a little more,
Or you could even, if you wanted to, you could actually have an angle like the 7th Street.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a number of options, but I think the reality is people are gonna flow out of here, and if they're going here,
Yep.
It's,
they're gonna cross there.
it's the wrong angle. They're not gonna wanna come back.
Yeah.
They're going straight to the light.
I'm sure some smart civil engineer can
Come up with something that makes sense, and complies with everybody's rules, but,
And that's the worst intersection you can have right downtown.
well, that's like.
That angle?
Can't be supposed to go away,
Yeah.
that's supposed to be a roundabout.
Yeah, I don't,
That one?
Yep.
Supposed to be roundabout?
Look at the redevelopment master plan. That's what it was supposed to be. And somebody made it a senior home or something.
Just saying.
So, I think that's about it, but I guess the only other thing I would offer to the group, in case we weren't aware, there, originally, in the proposed capital improvement plan, there was a pretty nominal amount for these parking lot improvements, but that got exponentially increased. I think it was around $1 million that's in there now, and I don't, is that still under review?
Actually, we're thinking, the intention is move forward with it, correct?
Yep.
So it'll become part of the 2022
Correct.
budget?
I thought I had it in here. Oh, parking lots, 1.388 is what we have allocated.
And I don't know if that's all this parking lot, if there's other parking lots that are in the queue.
I'm sure there's other parking lots, but I think, council, this is priority,
Yes.
this one here. So whatever it's gonna take, whatever we have left over, we'll be able to handle other parking lots.
So I'm of the opinion that I think as an EDA, again, when we talk about all the pieces, right? And creating an environment downtown, that is an environment that people want to be in and bring their businesses to, and people want to come and visit, that, I think this is something that we need to keep our finger on the pulse, if not, insert ourselves fully to make sure that the types of concerns we have from a DA perspective are considered. And I think part of that will happen with the joint meeting we're going to have with planning and our council representatives, which are, I believe, Lisa Wong and Councilmember Corson.
Correct.
So, but we need to stay affirmatively engaged with this to make sure that we.
With this plan, is there an estimate as to how many parking spots will be created?
So the upper left corner there.
Yeah, so that's.
Okay, I see, 170, okay, I missed that, sorry.
And I think that one of them shows the current, I think that is essentially the current, just getting restriped, the 170. And I think they don't exponentially get bigger, it's like 172,
Yeah.
different versions.
And I don't think that's any beautification of the parking lot at all.
No, it's not. I'd almost, again, I think that, this is another area where, if anybody wanted to listen to me, I would make arguments that I'd be willing to give up some spots to, make it, again, more pedestrian friendly.
I would agree.
Get a little more green back there. make it a bit more inviting. And I would also advocate strongly, I know we have a couple electric vehicle stations coming in, but, I mean, what's that?
An area for bicycles as well, for people to be able to lock up their bikes.
Planning commission is not letting anything happen without bicycle pathways. That's been made.
I got that impression.
It's been made abundantly clear. But no, yeah, all of that, right?
Yep.
I was just gonna make a comment about the electrical vehicle thing, and I know I would assume very in tune with this. I went to Hy-Vee yesterday, they have two, they're not Tesla ones, they're just two whatever, stations, electric vehicle charging stations out in the lot. And they have about 10, that Tesla put in, I don't know what the arrangement was there, but Tesla's got about 10 of them on the one side of the building. And I was there yesterday at 4 o'clock, and every single one of them were taken, and I saw more Teslas and other electric vehicles sitting unplugged. So, I mean, this is becoming,
It's real.
yeah, very real, and so I know we have two coming, I think, as part of the Minnesota Municipal Power, right?
Yep,
I don't know if that was a grant, or we just get that, or,
we get it through the agency.
okay. But, I don't know, we might, as part of this process, consider more than two.
It almost sounds like, Hy-Vee was the attraction to Hy-Vee because of the plug-in capability for electric vehicles.
Could be, I haven't seen any, I'm just trying to think, I don't know of any other business that has, as many stations as they have. And what the driver for them is, I'm not sure.
Were they funding them as well in some places?
They may have been, I don't know that.
I would doubt it.
We've had a resident, as you know, Brian, come in pretty much every month, and he wants something fixed on our charging station. And he apparently made a report with who's the supplier of that.
I have it written down, and yeah.
So anyways, make a long story short, he goes on and on, very negative, and I did some research because he was upset that it's not available when he wants to use it. There's 17 locations within a 5-mile radius. So I know there are a lot of other stations.
Well, now he's got Hy-Vee over here, so.
Right.
Well, Hy-Vee,
Right.
I mean, I bet that must be down there, because I bet Hy-Vee's got 17 of them in Oakdale.
There were, no, 17 locations, not charging stations, but
Oh.
locations.
Different
Yeah, in a 5-mile radius, 5 miles from here.
Right.
So there's a lot out there.
So, anyway, we don't need to belabor that, but I think that's another kind of important piece. And, that's also going to kind of speak to, I think, a little bit about, who do we want to, visit the city, and what's that demographic look like, and, as it, no offense to the generations above me, but, I mean, I don't, my grandma's not driving a Tesla, but I have a lot of friends that are my age or younger that drive Teslas.
I think that interest will continue to grow too.
Right.
Well, it has to, because.
And I say Tesla, but obviously there's other
Sure.
people.
I mean, they're all changing over by.
If it's anything
5
like
years.
going from leaded gas to unleaded gas, when I was in high school, I worked at a gas station, and the leaded gas pumps were out, and then they had a little pump on the edge of their garage that was unleaded. And within 18 months or 2 years that I worked there, all the gas pumps were unleaded, and the leaded gas was a little pump on the side. So.
Well, I remember the place down here used to have the racing fuel, or whatever they
Oh,
call it.
yeah.
The hot stuff.
The high octane,
Right.
I think it's still, the one to the east of the Legion, I think still does racing gasoline.
That
high
Marco
octane.
does.
I think so.
Yeah, they do, and so does Big Farm.
Yeah. I think
Fleet Farm
that's
does
true.
good.
I just can't comprehend if we all change to electric vehicles, everyone's gonna be fighting for it, unless it's at your house and, I don't know.
Well,
I mean, how do you, if you're almost out, where do you roll? I mean,
There's- My understanding is that they're looking at doing like gas stations where you plug in for 5 minutes and you'll get a full charge.
will charge you 5
Yeah.
minutes. Why?
5 minutes.
Yeah, they got these
They're gonna
super
have,
charge stations.
they're gonna have stations where you're gonna be doing that. And the quick trips, the holidays and stuff like that, they're gonna have to convert because they're gonna want their convenience stores and they're gonna want
So
people to.
when Quick Trip put this in over here, did they even think about high voltage coming into, are they able to?
They didn't ask, but it takes a three-phase power to do that. Those charging stations are about $50,000 to $60,000.
Well, I guarantee you they got three-phase power at Quick Trip.
Oh, yeah, I installed it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have refrigeration like they have. and not have-
I'm actually almost certain that Quick Trip, the one that just went in on Inlet and Lake Elmo, I'm almost certain they have an electric charger there.
Okay,
I would almost.
yeah,
Bet the $10 I got in my wallet that they have one, because I was there, I remember seeing a car over off.
pulled up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting too, because there are now grids available that you can build into your concrete floor in your home garage and just drive over it and park and it'll charge without plugging in.
They take a lot longer though.
They take a lot longer, and I have little doubt that they're damn expensive.
But if you park
But I get-
overnight, you know.
But I have a feeling
Yeah.
that might be another,
Well,
That's-
man, putting in a new garage, so maybe
Phase,
that's
but-
That's not the one for me. I've had this Apple Watch for a year, and I can't get the dang thing to charge, and finally I looked it up the other day. I'm like, problem with my Apple Watch. It's step one, make sure you peel the paper thing off your charger, and I get my charger, and like, works perfect.
well, I'll tell you what, Robert, we all.
It's translucent, just for the record. It's not like, it's not, it doesn't say remove this paper. I mean, it was- I didn't even know it was on there.
We can all laugh at that, but I'll guarantee we've also done a number of things probably just like that, we just haven't told anyone.
But it's still stuck to the charger.
Sure.
It's a safe zone, isn't it?
It is the same, let's sit here, stays here for the most part.
Okay, we're digressing.
That was funny.
That is good.
So, at any rate, so as this unfolds, I just think that we, you guys are gonna hear more of it than we will, since we're not here every day, but we just wanna keep our finger in this parking lot operation for a couple of reasons, just to make sure that EDA's got a voice here. And we will get some of that, I think, even though that's not the purpose of this group that's meeting on the redevelopment master plan. This is gonna be a component of it for sure, so, but we wanna try to stay engaged in that before, because as these things go, we go away for a month and a lot can happen, and we could miss
Yep.
out, so. I don't know if it's appropriate, can we make a request as an EDA that we'd like to be included in plan reviews of this, or how does that work?
Well, I can share that information when we see it come in as well.
Okay. Yeah, just, some of these things can go a little fast sometimes, and it'd be good to, have the opportunity to weigh in.
Well, to have a parking lot that size will go a long way to eliminating some of the parking issues that we have.
For sure, correct.
Because, obviously, in its current condition, there's a lot of people that would prefer not to park back there, but
Right.
we can make it accessible and comfortable.
Right. Okay, if nothing further there, the item I added is regarding the Lilly Building. We talked a little bit about that, I think at our prior meeting, but, so a couple things that have unfolded. We did, must have been 5-6 weeks ago, maybe we met with Tony Schwartz, which is a broker representing the current owners. And we had talked about, they had a pending sale fell through. What were potential next steps if that happened? We kind of outlined at least from our, my perspective or our perspective at the time, which was, what long-term, what's going to happen here? Are you going to keep trying to plug tenants in a inefficient and largely unusable building that don't really work, or are you going to pour money into it, renovate it? Is it worth more if you take it down to flat dirt and sell it as a developable property and quit paying taxes on improved property, because taxes were part of their concern. And so, talked about a lot of different options. At the time, we kind of determined that next steps would be to get a hazardous material survey on the building to find out what's in there. That would be the first step, which would then permit the second step of finding out what are the costs to abate and demolish the building if that's the path they choose. And so we helped them, gave them some guidance as to how to get these surveys done and by who. So they did. They went and got 3 of them, and their brokers forwarded them to me. I actually owe them just some comments back on my thoughts, but so they're. And they hinted, I won't say hinted, I don't know if that's the right word, but, there's some discussion about can we, as the EDA, where will we be able to help and potentially participate? And I think what we said at the time was there's nothing on the table, so I can't, I'm just gonna offer something when we don't know what the exchange is or what we're talking about. So let's follow these steps and let's try to get this, whole thing in some sort of financial bucket. This thing's between, the hazardous material survey that they need to get done is between $5,000 and $7,000, depending on who they pick. There was one that was kind of a little outlandish, but that's why we had to get 3. At that rate, it would be my intent to reply to them and say, I've reviewed these, I have a background, so I have some technical expertise, so I can just say, this is my thoughts on what direction to go, get surveyed out, and then get a demo price, abatement / demo price on the thing. At that point, I would expect that they'll likely come to the table and want something, don't know what that is, maybe some assistance, financial or otherwise, in
for the cost of the
getting the thing to the ground. Yeah. So, I guess we'll wait and see on that. We can talk about it if we think it's appropriate. I don't know that they're gonna ask to any participation for getting the actual hazardous materials survey done. I would say at that value, you gotta kind of figure that out on your own. If you can't do that, then you're certainly not gonna be able to do the next step.
Exactly.
So that's kind of where it sits, with the exception, I will add that, and I think he copied you on this.
The other building.
Yeah, so they have made a decision apparently to sell the hair salon building, which is adjacent, I don't think it's connected.
No, it's
Yeah.
not connected.
It's adjacent, but it is part of the larger parcel, to sell that to their, I guess it's their current tenant, the salon owner.
No, I didn't know that, but they're not going to consult with me because I'm on the EDA, and just so you know, if anything comes up that we have to vote for, I will be abstaining,
Okay.
so.
Obviously it's private parcel, if that's what they're choosing to do, so be it. But I do think that that still leaves the Lilly Building, and there is, I think we have some interest in it as an EDA in terms of its disposition, what happens there. I think, I'm of the opinion that I'd either want to see it wholly renovated and upgraded and fit into the community as it's beginning to take shape, or be flattened. That's my opinion.
Well, I can pretty much tell you, from what I know about my father-in-law and his sister, they will not be improving the building.
And we kind of got that message from the, I don't think the numbers, when you start looking at the numbers of improvement costs versus taking it to the ground and getting rid of improved property taxes, and lowering that tax burden until something happens with it, I think it makes it probably more attractive for sale as well.
Yeah.
I would suspect that's the path they'll take, but right now, we're just kind of providing advice and guidance, and there's
Well,
no.
the building is so, I mean, there's different levels, there's step downs to different parts of the building, and, yeah, it's, I can't believe that it would be very convenient to.
It'd have to be almost,
Yeah.
each building would have to be separate.
Correct.
With a new entrance, with, you know,
Just because of.
it'd be a
the
lot,
design,
like you
yeah.
say, at that point, it's a tear down.
Well, my father-in-law is he's gonna be 85 next month. His sister is 87. There's,
Not a whole lot of time.
right now, I mean, I recommended to him, just get rid of it. Whatever money you can get out of it is,
Well, it's a burden right now.
yeah, it is a burden right now.
Again, the city is probably in the best position to be able to take over that burden, you know.
Well, like I said, I can't really comment on that, so.
Understand.
Yeah, and I don't, we could, hypothesize all day about what may or may not happen. Or officially, there's no ask on the table, so there's really nothing to discuss.
Yeah.
But, long-term, they come back, if you can, you can kind of predict these things, right? Based on what we've heard today, that, get the survey done, get a demo cost in, say, these are pure made-up numbers, let's say it's $50,000 to get the thing to the ground and all the hazardous material out of there, and flatten it. There's likely to be an ask at some level at that point, would be my guess, and then then we'll have something on the table we can talk about, and then we can decide at that point, does it make sense, is there some exchange to be done there, maybe we float it at a moderate interest rate and get it back when they move the parcel, or who knows, whatever.
Right.
So, that's all I had to report on that.
Right.
I don't know if there's any further discussion, but I just wanted to keep people up to date. That's all I have, and so the next one is Executive Director report. That would be you, sir.
So I had a question. So I was told by MinSpec that the old subway, that people who were remodeling that or redoing it for a restaurant pulled out after they hit them with some violations. I hear they're now back there working and almost complete with it.
They got a coupon in value pack.
Yeah, so do we know what the status is over there? Have you heard anything?
I have not, just exactly what you just said, that they were gone and now they're back, and now there's a coupon in value pack, and. I mean,
Does
that's
inspect,
got-
they do the inspections for the city?
Yes.
What are they being inspected right now, or are they?
I guess they're close to completion was the last I heard. I don't know where they're at with the final inspection. I just heard this the other day. So
I haven't heard anything.
Just the restaurant, that's my understanding. I don't know the name, I don't know.
His brother's eatery.
Brothers Eatery?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Does MinSpec, do they manage the permitting process as well for the city?
No, we do that internally.
Yeah,
They have an active permit?
they do, from my understanding.
I'd have to
Well, then,
look.
I don't, if there, unless there's code violations, as long as they've done their stuff, I don't understand why MinSpec is even involved. The
Well,
next part is
we contract with
Department of
MinSpec.
Health.
No, they conduct the building inspection.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
they do
contract
conduct,
with,
right,
yeah,
okay.
on
Right.
all of our building permits.
Okay.
Right, so since we don't have what was his name that was here? before?
Jim, the code enforcer.
Yeah, building, we don't have a building official, so.
Okay.
It's gotta be.
Well, we have a code enforcer, but we do not have a building inspector.
Okay. So,
Okay.
so if they've continued to work, then MinSpec should be doing inspections along the way.
No, that one.
And if they're covering up walls without inspection, that could be a problem.
Lisa, do you know if Met Council gets involved because of the SAC and the WAC
Mhm.
things with facility
Mhm.
like that?
Any
Yeah.
building.
I thought so.
Yeah, they wouldn't have any inspections though, and as a food service place.
So it would just hit them with permit costs,
Yeah.
and they would have to.
But that should have been done at the initial building permit stage.
I would have thought so.
the sack and whack, yeah.
Didn't happen to us that way.
It's supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know the,
Second whack, guys.
Anybody know the address down there? Or which,
Oh, jeez.
it's
Let me look
something
at
less
this.
than 2583.
Okay, that was it.
try this.
Yeah.
I think it's greater than that, or isn't it?
Year 2678?
Greater than that?
Yes.
I suppose I could look in MapQuest and see, because it's right across the street from you.
Yep,
Kitty corner.
just west of the bank. In there, over this auto.
Oh,
But, so is that something that you just call and inspect and say, hey, are these guys getting inspections, or?
Yep. Find that out.
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing to do.
Is it down by
Yep.
this one right
That
here?
one. Yep.
Oh, what happened when I clicked on it?
Should be right there.
Yeah.
Subway. Okay,
Very close.
There you go.
but that address is, then we can go 2649 7th.
What's going on there?
Eatery? Brothers, breakfast, lunch,
Oh.
I think,
Yeah.
no dinner.
They're gonna still have the salon next to them?
Mhm.
So, they have all these permits, but they don't have a building permit. They have plumbing, mechanical, electrical, another oh, they stopped the mechanical. And the fire alarm.
Stuff that in
June.
June.
So the last thing that was pulled was a plumbing permit in July. They would only need a building permit if they were replacing doors, windows, or installing the interior walls and whatnot. And it was my understanding they were just gonna move in there and use the existing space. Is that correct? Yeah.
That'd be interesting when you think about the kitchen space at a restaurant, taking that size would need versus what Subway requires.
Well, they thought, I heard they originally thought that they were getting the entire building, which there's a hair salon in there as well, and that wasn't part of it, so I don't know where we're at with it.
I just don't get it. I don't, you go to get something, you think you're getting the whole entire building, but you don't.
But didn't you do your homework and, wow, I know Elizabeth hasn't been impressed with it,
No,
period.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Well, that's not,
So be it.
anything else? Okay. Thanks for the controversial
Stir it up a little bit.
Can I ask a question? You may know the answer to. So I can kind of visually see progress down there on the apartment building. Looks like Quick Trip is getting pretty close. Do they have an opening date yet?
I haven't heard the official open date,
Okay.
but I know they're getting close.
And then, have we heard any scuttlebutt on the apartments, how they're doing, any problem? Anything good, bad, or otherwise?
Did an open house this last weekend.
Which one are you talking about?
Which one are you
Anchor
talking
Drive?
In the city hall, they has open house.
No, I'm
Uptown
I'm
Commons?
talking apartments on,
Oh.
across from Quick Trip.
Yep.
Great. Well, we are just digging in their power now, just to get them.
Yeah, my
So,
windows are set.
they got a ways to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how much they've been working on the interior.
Okay.
And they got the roof on now, I believe.
Yeah, I don't-
Got that part
Mhm.
done, so.
I don't believe they're working on an interior at all right now.
I wouldn't think so, they're not closed, but.
And I believe M&I is finishing up their last one, or started their last one.
No, they have 3 more that are left that we need to energize yet, but they can close them, and, well, one, I don't know if they've closed the last one, but they're getting close on one more for having power and energizing it, and they've already substantially started another one. There were 3 left we had not energized yet.
Treasurer's report? Come on. I did your job for you. You know, I talked to, we have a new city finance guy.
Yeah.
We did kind of spin through what he showed we had, which was more than what I thought we had, so I said, that's good. But,
I did see financials last night.
He's getting through his budget cycle, and I did mention that, hey, we'd like to just get together and run through it, you know, at some point. So when he's pretty deep in his new job here, so once they get through the budget cycle, we'll maybe tap him after that.
That'd be good.
For a sit down, so.
I don't like being clueless when
Right.
The last week, or last month, whatever.
I had requested them, now this I think, was last month the first one that you received?
Yep, that's the first one I received.
Okay, because
since-
this states
Rich
as
with
of
the-
December 31st, 2021, so it would be current to whatever date we printed this.
Okay,
And unless you spent any money, did the 125 come out of there already? So
I don't believe it went 25.
we'll pass that down to Don and he can,
Well, I mean, that's actually some of the questions I have, which was like, so something I heard the other day, or at the council meeting was, how does the EDA have any money, where they just bought the BP station? Well, I don't recall the EDA purchasing the.
No,
BP
we
station.
did not.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that I've been here for most of the
Right.
meetings, and I don't remember.
And so, so I still think it's warranted to have a discussion, and I don't think, in looking at what I looked at the other day, again, I was kind of brief, but I don't even know where the check came from to buy that property out of foreclosure, because that was an EDA function, so I would have thought it would come out of the EDA, and if it did, obviously you want to make sure that it got back to the EDA, but again,
That would come from Scott, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I can follow up with him too.
No, I don't think it's necessary now.
We'll get together with them.
We would all be pleased with the balance that he showed in the EDA account as of September
Yeah.
7th, so, but we should get to them, because I think it's some of these ins and outs that are.
Well, like we discussed last month,
Tend to be a mystery.
I mean, what $49,000 piece of land do we own?
I think we own one of those houses down there.
Oh,
Do you?
I think we do.
Really?
Yes.
That's,
But that's what we need to figure out.
Figure out,
right?
yeah.
And make sure that we understand who's got what.
yep.
The other thing I would add is that I believe, unless something changed in budget discussions, I believe we are scheduled to get our full levy with a 8 or 9% increase. I think the number's like 200.
well, it's discussion, and I'm gonna be pushing for the maximum levy, but I think there will be pushback.
I would expect nothing less, but I would also expect the maximum levy to be.
Right.
Yeah, so, anyway, I think the maximum levy was right around 200 or something, maybe just a tick over 200,000.
Okay.
But there are, I know they're crunching numbers, so there's a possibility we may get this goes for us.
I think it should be a recommendation out of the EDA, you know.
Our recommendation is to maximum levy.
Yes. How else are we gonna do what our goal is
So if we don't have,
if we don't have the funding?
You just said you agreed with it, Pat.
simple solution, all of you should move to North St. Paul.
I live in North St.
Oh, you do, don't
I
you?
already am. I don't live here, but I pay plenty of taxes.
I did hear back from Dan, he has not seen the check yet, he was gonna send an email to the county to ask about it.
Interest still taken. No, I'm just kidding. Get the sheriff or some interest. Anything else from Treasurer? Sorry. Chair, I've already said all I have to say. Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, just this last weekend, last Friday, we had the cancellation of the car show. You know, it's an impact of the vendors that were down there, you know, the businesses that rely on the car show, but something that we had to do. We were getting information in regards to a potential carryover from Maplewood into the car show, and it was legitimate information that we're getting. So we canceled it. You know, very hard to do. I think it's something I don't want to be doing, you know, at in the car show, but there's potential, we got 2 more left. The potential is still out there for some sort of disruption.
Was this like a civil unrest thing, or are you allowed to share? I don't.
Yeah, I would say it's from the car chase that happened 2 weeks ago, Friday, where it started in White Bear, went through North St. Paul into Maplewood. The vehicle ended up going into someone's yard, not being pursued, but it was pursued earlier. 2 kids passed away, 4 survived, and one of the mothers is complaining that the police department, should not be chasing vehicles. It was the fault of the police department.
What are they supposed to do?
So with that said,
They were 14-year-olds.
we all have our own.
I know.
We all have our own opinions, but that's what happened, and they had a vigil on Friday night down at Maplewood. I believe there was at least a couple hundred people, and that potentially could have came into the car show. We don't have the resources to handle, a mass, couple thousand people, and have,
A new police chief.
yeah, new police chief.
Is that like day 2 on the job or something?
Something like that.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah. But we do have a potential next Friday, again, this Friday, we don't know, we'll just keep moving on. But that affects us economically, and,
Yeah, definitely.
you got a new restaurant that's coming in, kind of sees this and sees everything that's happening. And new city manager coming in,
Doesn't help the reputation of the car show in the city.
But it's nothing that we did, or not,
No.
nothing that our
No.
police department did, nothing, it's just the environment right now.
What is the size of our police force?
We have a total of 19 police officers.
19 full-time equivalent.
And a couple of CSOs. When we get to full capacity.
I was a little surprised at the council meeting I did, the number of officers I saw there.
Yeah, a lot of them were retired and
Oh.
around the community, yeah. So
Okay.
not all of them were from.
That's all I got.
Okay.
I got another meeting downstairs.
Okay, any reports from EDA members? Anything additional? Archie?
Just have a quick question. That old BP site off Century, who's responsible to maintain at least the
We are.
grass cutting? 'Cause
We
it
are.
looks terrible.
Is it?
That's how you enter the city. You got weeds that are,
I thought that was being kept up pretty good, but
Supposed to be, I was not aware of that.
so.
Can we get a note?
I'm kind of echoing that from Tom, because that was one of his concerns this morning before he went to the pit.
okay.
Get a note to Public Works on it?
Yep.
And, yeah, and the last time I was by there wasn't that long ago, and I observed that, boy, that was pretty tough. It looked like it hadn't been touched for quite a while, so
I'm
just an
thinking they don't know that
observation.
we own it.
Well, that's possible,
It's not a
No,
mowing
it's-
rotation.
it's just an observation.
Do we own this house across the street from me?
No.
Anything else, Archie?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Staff?
No.
All right.
Okay.
If nothing else, our next meeting's on October 12th, and we
Can I
shall adjourn.
talk to you and Brian sometime when you get time?
So moved.
Second.
Do you want to go down there?
All right.